So let's picture it. 1947. India finally gets its independence, an absolutely incredible moment of triumph. But, what happens after the parties are over, when the hard reality kicks in? What does it actually take to build a nation from scratch?
And that right there is the big question we're diving into. Because for the brand new nation of India, the end of colonial rule, well, that wasn't the finish line. It was the starting gun for a series of challenges so huge they seemed almost impossible.
Yeah, this was way more than just changing the flags on a few buildings. It was about trying to create a single identity from this incredibly fragmented past. It was about healing a society literally torn in two and trying to build a new economy from the rubble of a system that was only ever designed to take, not to give.
Okay, so first things first, the political puzzle. Before you can even think about governing India, you have to make it exist as a single unified country. And believe me, that was anything but guaranteed.
Just get a load of that number. Over 560. That's how many semi-independent princely states, each with its own ruler, had to be convinced or coerced to join the Indian Union. The map of India at the time? It was a complete mess, like a chaotic patchwork quilt. So, how on earth do you solve a puzzle like that? Well, India's leaders came up with this really brilliant, really pragmatic three-step strategy. First, they tried diplomacy, just talking, negotiating with the rulers. When that didn't quite cut it, they ramped up the political pressure, and only when all else failed, as a total last resort, did they use limited force to make sure the nation stayed in one piece. All right, so with the physical map more or less sorted out, the next gigantic task began, creating a single rulebook, a constitution for what was then 1/5 of all humanity. Think about that. And wow, what a blueprint it turned out to be. The Constitution, which was adopted in 1950, was so much more than just a dry legal document. It was really a social contract for the new India. It guaranteed fundamental rights for everyone, it set up a federal structure to handle all that incredible diversity, and, this is so important, it tackled social justice head-on, trying to break the chains of age-old hierarchies. Just a massive, massive achievement. But, political structures are one thing. The human reality, that's something else entirely. So let's shift gears and talk about the immense social challenges, the very real, very painful human cost of independence. This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the tragedy of partition, doesn't it? A single line drawn on a map by officials who were thousands of miles away, and it unleashed this violent, chaotic storm that ripped millions of lives apart. We're talking about one of the largest and most brutal mass migrations in all of human history. And the scars from that ran deep, and they are still there today. It wasn't just one problem, but a whole chain reaction of crises. You had horrific communal violence, the massive displacement of people that created a refugee crisis on a scale that's just hard to even imagine, the ongoing border disputes that were born right then and there, and this profound, lasting wound on the nation's psyche. And the challenges went even deeper than the immediate crisis of partition. The new nation inherited a society just riddled with these deep, deep-seated inequalities. So the task ahead was enormous. How do you transform a deeply hierarchical society into an egalitarian one? It meant taking on the oppressive legacy of the caste system, it meant addressing staggering gender inequality, and it meant fighting the widespread poverty and illiteracy that was holding millions and millions of people back. Okay, so you've got these huge social and political hurdles. With all that going on, how do you even start to build an economy? Let's turn to that economic blueprint.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the stark contrast. The colonial legacy was just bleak. Practically no industrial base, a struggling farm sector, and an entire economic system that was basically designed to suck wealth out of India and ship it to Britain. The new national vision? It was the total opposite. Build heavy industries, create infrastructure, and, most importantly, become self-reliant.
To pull this off, India went with a mixed economy model and these super ambitious 5-year plans. The basic idea was for the state to control the really important stuff, heavy industry, infrastructure, while still allowing for a private sector. But just think about the tension there for a second. How do you go for rapid, top-down industrial growth while also making sure you're achieving social justice and lifting millions out of poverty? This balancing act would really define India's economic story for decades to come. So when you add it all up, the political fragmentation, the social trauma, the economic distress, it's honestly a miracle the nation survived at all. And this brings us to the final, and maybe most crucial part of our story.
India as this completely unlikely democratic experiment. And, as if the problems at home weren't enough, the world outside was a pretty dangerous place. India had to walk this tightrope during the Cold War, choosing a path of non-alignment between the US and the USSR. It fought wars with its neighbors, Pakistan and China, and was constantly dealing with political instability inside its own borders.
So this was the question everyone was asking. I mean, so many other post-colonial countries were falling into dictatorships or military rule. Could India, with its mind-boggling diversity and its deep poverty, actually defy the odds? And this is really the key takeaway. India's survival wasn't just some political victory. It was a societal one. It was about creating a whole new idea of a nation, one that could find its unity not in spite of its diversity, but actually because of it.
You know, when you step back and look at the big picture, this is the ultimate triumph. In a world where so many new nations were just splintering or failing, India's ability to just hold itself together, to keep its democratic institutions going, and to preserve its multicultural, multi-religious fabric, well, it was nothing short of extraordinary.
So, what India's story after 1947 really shows us is that nation building is never truly finished. It isn't just about drawing lines on a map or writing laws. It's this continuous trial by fire, a constant struggle to forge unity from diversity that really continues to this day. And that leaves us with one last big question. What does it truly take to build, and more importantly, to sustain a nation?